Okay. No, I haven't. I haven't had a chance to look at that. Um, One of the things I think would really help is a way to parse the game save, and that way we can look at the specific data. That's going to require a lot of tools and a lot of being able to process embedded structures, such as meshes, material files, and things like that. I do want to get to that point, but it's going to be quite a while before I can get to it. I've got to get the base for everything done first, and then I'll probably make those tools standalone, where you don't really need a mod manager to use them. It'll be like a command line thing, command line program, because I kind of really love the idea of like Linux and stuff. Okay, so if I look at your like load order, let's assume that Fallout 4 and all the DLCs work. Let's assume that whatever bugs are inherent to Fallout 4 would exist within the official files, such as the Fallout 4 game and all the DLCs. So let's assume that's not the case. Where you add guns, you've got grease gun, automatic weapon, the Beretta. I want to say Beretta M60. And let's not look at some settlements here too. Let's look at the guns. You got the heavy machine gun, the Browning, the Cold War, killable children. Yeah, I had to put that in my game because I have Raider children. One spawned right outside of Sanctuary. I thought I'm gonna let this little kid get up. Well, she dropped me with a double barrel shotgun right off the bat. So yeah, that didn't happen again. You got jetpack. You got the Redux spring cleaning. I'm assuming this is going to clean basically like the leaves. I'm going to think springtime, so you'd clean up fall leaves. I'm assuming it's going to clean up debris, leaves, decals, things like that. Um, it may be possible that some things look for decals. I'm not really sure. Because if you run Sim Settlements 2, I'm pretty sure, if I remember correctly, I think you built your own settlements. Um, so I don't know if Sim Settlements 2, if you use a city plan, if it requires decals to be there, because that's not something you can normally scrap. And scrapping it doesn't necessarily cause a problem. Not like necessarily breaking a previs by scrapping, let's say, a house or a set of trees that generally can't be scrapped, or some hedges, shrubs. So if we keep going through the guns, you got the MG, the M1, of course, Workshop Framework, HUD, see-through. I've got that. Tactical reload. That should I'm pretty sure if you fire 4 shots, it only reloads four ammo. I want to say cartridges. Bullets would not probably be the proper term. Maybe cartridges into the magazine. You've got the A10, lowered weapons, personal vertibird. Now, with the A10, I'm not sure. I'm not sure what it does. I'm not sure. I know you remove that. So I don't know if that would cause it. If you remove that and then it crashed shortly after, like let's say you removed it, but you didn't go to Sanctuary, you might try putting it back in the same position it was at. It could make it worse. It could actually solve the problem. I'm not sure. Because I've never really disassembled any of the code or anything like that. One of the things that might cause a problem is repairable sanctuaries. It might change references to buildings or something. I don't know. I don't know why that would do that, because if I look at it from a gameplay perspective, and you did not use SS2 to build any city plans, so you did everything manually. I can't think of the dude's name. Jake shows up. There's already a beacon built, but you do have to build the plots. I don't think they require power. They might. Depends on the setup. You might be able to go into Workshop Framework and change everything to self-powered. So there's an option in Workshop Framework. You can't undo this, but change everything so that it is self-powered and doesn't need to be powered by anything. And I don't know how it applies that to the objects. I don't know if you need to be in the settlement so that it has the settlement reference, the workbench reference. to apply the changes to all the objects linked to that workbench, like let's say in Sanctuary, or if you can do that remotely. I want to say it's the previous where you need to be in the settlement to do it, but that might be an option, so that any object that is powered, and hopefully SS2 and non-SS2 items, anything that would be in the power grid list, linked list, would be set to self-power, and therefore it wouldn't need to be connected to anything. So that might be an option to try. But back on that line of thinking, I've added weapons and removed them, and it may cause a problem depending on where and how the data for that weapon is stored. Just having the weapon, the only problem I ever saw was where the race record for a particular NPC didn't have access to the animations to use that weapon. Therefore, they would never equip it, or they would hold it but never fire it because they just didn't know how to use it, in a sense. If as far as like adding mods and stuff, let me see, I'm kind of looking at this as I go, so I'm probably going to be scattered thought here with a lot of things going on. Let's go back over here. So over here where I actually installed mods, let's see, I actually installed mods. Let me get the overlays going here. You can actually see where I installed some mods during the gaming playthrough, and then I started to get errors. Now some of these errors were self-inflicted. This particular error here, this PRKF, this was because I installed the wrong Swift file for Be Exceptional. It's the thing that actually shows your stats, where you can adjust your stats. I overwrote the Be Exceptional Swift, and of course that 10-6 right off the bat when I tried to access that particular menu. And that's how I figured out, that's how I instantly knew what it was, because the minute I tried to go in and apply my perk points and my experience points, it instantly crashed. It didn't even bring up the interface. But you can see like skeletons might be able to cause a problem because some guns might require the Zex extended skeleton because it needs particular attach points or nodes on that skeleton. And if that doesn't exist, that can cause a crash because it's trying to reference something at a very low level in the code that doesn't have a check to see if what it's asking for is not there. So it'll basically just kind of kill itself or crash. So that's an idea. One of the guns may require the Zex extended skeleton to work. So I know I've always installed Zex because I don't know what may or may not need it. So I always keep that up to date. I think I've got Zex version 6. So again, it's like an extended skeleton, which I think adds extra attach points for certain things. So if a gun needs it, assumes it's there, it's more than likely going to crash. A lot of these things you can see was where the mod author upgraded their mods. They didn't include textures or something. It could have been an ESP change to a particular field value, or it could be in the archive itself, and then they just upload a package which has the ESP and the archives all in one. But the reason I wanted to show you this is you can see where I was getting quite a few errors, and towards the end it was almost like a machine gun effect where it's like bam bam bam, and it just errors one right after another. Let's see if we can bring one of these up. Now this was my last playthrough, and a lot of them I had was this. Like, it was this kernel-based stuff. No other information than kernel-based. So I'm thinking, if I go down here and take a look at the stack, it may be something related to PRP, but it looks like it has to do with this, because this has already come up twice. So it may be has something to do, and this right here is where I was talking about where you need to rebuild your sorter patch, because what his Xedit script does is take a look at your mods that's in your load order. It takes a look at the record types, and it replaces some information in some of the fields in those record types to provide sorting information. So when you bring up a menu, it will show like a first aid kit or a gun or a piece of armor, like an icon before the actual gun or, you know, med kit or armor's name, like your stim pack. And that's all that script does. And it combines all those new records in a patch, which is what that complex sorter thing is. And I've got it down here. Now I noticed when I had flipped, let me see, I had flipped these two right here. I had this actually above this. No, it wasn't that. Let me reactivate that. When I had, I think it was this or this. I think I had this above the bash patch. See, okay, so what the bash patch does is you'll have, like, you can have what's called a leveled list. So when an NPC spawns, you can have conditionals in the ESP which says if they're a certain level or if certain things exist on their person, you know, you can do that in a script too, then spawn them with certain items. It's like a leveled list. So it's a list of leveled items, and so as you level, it'll give you different items out of that list. If you install another mod, which, because I think you have like a specific leveled list. So let's say you have one leveled list for guns, and you install another mod which overwrites that leveled list. Well, your previous mod, let's say it's a pistol, is not going to spawn at all because it's not in that leveled list because that list got overwrote. So let's say the vanilla game has 10 guns and a pistol adds the 11th, and then you want to add another gun, which is a pistol, which adds 12. Well, there's only one leveled list, so what it'll do is the last pistol will replace the first, so you still only have 11 in the list, and the previous pistol you added won't show up. The better way to do it is to inject it. So therefore, it doesn't require a bashed patch. Because what a bashed patch does is take a look at all of your ESPs, find leveled lists, and combine them into one. So therefore, the vanilla and let's say the pistol number 1 you add and pistol number 2 all gets put into one list, and that comes after all the other references or ESPs that have that leveled list. So therefore, that particular leveled list will have all 12 items, and they will start spawning accordingly. Injecting is, I always pick injection when I look at mods if they have it, because that way I don't have to worry about a bash patch. Although some things, some mods I have, I do, because it doesn't inject it. Like some things an NPC might drop, armor, things like that. And then you have your complex sorter patch, which needs to be able to see all that stuff and then add records, add particular types of information to some of the fields in those records accordingly. So like I say, therefore it says, okay, I've got a stim pack, I'm going to put in braces, it's first aid. And therefore, when you go to your Pip-Boy, or you go to your, let's say your workbench, or you're going to trade, you can actually see little icons where it says stim pack, and then to the left of that, it'll have like a med kit or a little first aid cross. That's how they get that. Okay, so, but you can see where I added a whole bunch of stuff mid-playthrough, and it would actually be hard to tell if some of these were caused by adding the mods. It would be easy to say that is the cause, but that's not necessarily the case. See, here's where I had a virtual machine, and this was where the scripting engine went completely, it freaked out. Now, what I think this is where a script is broken down into frames. You can call that instructions. So somewhere along the line, the scripting engine, which I believe is not truly multi-threaded, I believe it's single-threaded, but it can do, like, let's say you got 10 scripts running, it's all going through the same pipe, which is the same CPU core or thread, but it can do a round robin where it does one instruction from one, or a time slice from one script, then it skips to the next script, to the next script, to the next script. So that's what they're calling multitasking or multi-threaded, but I don't believe it's truly multi-threaded in that all 10 scripts are running on 10 different threads. So somehow I think that there's an indexing value, I would guess, there's an indexing value in the frames which act like a check. So I'm currently on frame, I'm in like, let's say stack this, and I'm looking for frame X or frame 10. I find frame 11, I've got a problem, it desyncs. It's considered a desync. So I'm assuming that's a very simplistic way of looking at it, but I believe it's something along those lines. I haven't thought about it too much, but I believe that's kind of like what they did, and that would make sense as a debugging tool because you do have the VM is kind of new, you got it in there. And let's kind of find a way to let's say I'm part of Bethesda. I'm not, but let's just say I am, and I don't work in the office. So let's say that we need to know a way of saying, okay, the problems that we're seeing are not data related or script related, it's VM related. The VM is not behaving as it should. It's not processing data as it should. And therefore we need to know that so we can differentiate between, we can now focus our efforts on what is causing the problem rather than just blindly scattering out and trying to find it. So that would make sense with that. But I did have a lot of errors and a lot of crashes. Some of them were really kind of odd. I had, let me see here. This is that error where it's like, I believe this is caused by a recursion. It's where it's a buffer overrun. I believe this is where the stack or the heap, which is kind of a chunk of memory that's allocated to like stack data, just kind of like, it's like calling the same thing. It's like you have routine 1 calls routine 1. And then if you do that, it's going to keep calling itself. So your stack is going to fill up because it needs to know where, each chunk of memory needs to know, like each reference needs to know where, once whatever it calls finishes, where it goes back to, but it's never going to come back because it's calling itself over and over again. That'll actually fill up your heap or your stack, and you'll get a buffer overrun. That's what this is. I've heard this is from recursive level lists, and that would probably imply that the game engine is loading something, and then based on what it loads, it's loading something else, but then something else then points back to what it first loaded, and therefore it's calling itself, and you have a recursion. But a lot of this cleared up, because you can kind of see, although I didn't see if the majority of these happened before PRP, it would be, which is the previs, which is things that I added, to see that actually, okay, so I added it up here, somewhere maybe. Let's see. I can't really guarantee that's it. Let's see. Let's do this again. All right, so I added it up here. I got a lot of errors, which could be previs related. I think some of these were. This is like an invalid reference, but I got a lot of these. So you could see where I went in and tried to notate things that I did to try to see if it really made an effect. And then if you look at the newest game I have, this one again was a UI crash. This one above that, and that. These, I believe, are previs related. I'm pretty sure these last 4 are previs. This was moving a pylon with a key with place everywhere, I think. And this right here was a UI crash. This was weird. The animation took me out of the Pip-Boy, but I was still in the Pip-Boy. It just didn't show the interface. And then when I fast traveled, that was this crash. This I'm pretty sure is previs. That's why I put pre-combined previs. I'm pretty sure that's what these errors are. So this is where my issue is currently. I haven't added much in here, but you can actually see where I've added mods mid playthrough. So sometimes you can get away with it. Sometimes you can't. It makes it hard to track down the problem, which is why I think you see a lot of people saying, Bethesda says, we don't really support it, and mod authors would be like, well, don't call me, I'll call you, and then they never call. I think that's because it makes it difficult to troubleshoot, but it's not an impossible problem. Understanding what can cause the issue and whether the issue is caused or not helps, someone try to identify what the problem is and potentially fix it, rather than just constantly sending somebody on a wild goose chase that may or may not be the cause of the issue, if that makes sense. Okay, so yeah, so that's where I'm at so far. I've mostly been doing a test run, just to kind of see if I made some changes to see if I still get those crashes. Most time I got a crash where I loaded a previous save, went to a settlement that I manually built, exported that with transfer settlements to make sure I got the most recent export, then went back to my current game, then loaded my current game save back, imported that settlement, and then I think when I fast traveled it crashed, and it was like a previs thing. And that's what I was looking at up here to see if I've got, I don't have all these previs repair things installed. I haven't really noticed any problems, but I'm considering putting these in just to see, just to see what it does, to see if things get better, stay the same, or get worse. I do have some previs things in here, though not a lot, but I do have some. Let's find them real quick. So I do have the previs repair pack. I've got the ones for Tales of the Commonwealth, and this is the BioShock Vault. It's a really nice vault. It's pretty cool, but I've got other mods in here that there are previs repair packs for, but I haven't noticed a problem. But if mod authors made these, then there must be an issue with it. And some of these areas I have been to, like I have been to this. It's not very big, so I'm going to install it and see what happens. At least that's on my end. Back onto your end, I'm thinking that, like I say, it could be the Zek skeleton. That would probably be something important to take a look at. Try putting the gun back in. I believe this was the gun you said you removed. Try putting that back in. I don't know if that's going to help him. Since it's a node problem, it's probably not going to help. But again, it depends on why the power grid list, or the nodes, they call them nodes, why it got corrupted. If there was a virtual machine, a VM virtual machine, if there was a VM desync where somehow it got confused, that may be what trashed the nodes, because it may have been processing that, or in the process of processing that, and somehow it got all foobarred, or it happened in reverse, where somehow the nodes got foobarred and delinked, or something got messed up, and then that's what caused the VM crash. I have a tendency to think the VM went first, and then the crash came next. That's what I have a tendency to think. That's just my thought process on it. So, yeah, just kind of hang in there. If you can keep playing your game save, I've done that. I've continued to play a game save that I've had, or a playthrough, as long as I could, and then I would try to salvage as much as I could from it. Like, I'd export the settlement I had, would transfer settlements while I could. I know you're not going to be able to do that with Sanctuary, but I would definitely do that with any other settlements you've built. And then if we can figure something out that helps, that would be great. So hang in there. Sorry you had the problem. I know I've had crashes galore, trust me. I had so many, I even put the Mortal Kombat fatality thing in mine, so it lets me know when it goes down. Alright, so good luck, and we're still here trying to help out.